Day for our third Tompkins Mahopac Bank Power Breakfast. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic Help Wanted, what to do about the current talent and labor shortage. I'm sure this is a topic that just spans all industries, and we're really looking forward to a very in-depth discussion from this group of panelists to provide some insight, some ideas, maybe some solutions. I'd like to think we'll figure it all out today, but if not, at least we'll take a crack at the problem. First, I'd like to introduce Matt Farrel, Vice President, Commercial Banking, Tompkins Mahopac Bank, to say a few words today. Thank you so much, Matt, for sponsoring.
Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Matthew Farrel. I'm a Commercial Loan Officer for Tompkins Mahopac Bank. Just want to give you a brief overview on the bank and what we're seeing out there in the marketplace. These continue to be challenging times, but our outlook is extremely positive. We've been working closely with clients to see them through these unpredictable cycles that COVID is driving. But in the Hudson Valley, things seem to be returning to as close to normal as possible. We've seen almost all of our clients either fully recover or on a clear path to recovery, which is great news. Probably the only exception to that is filling some open roles from their HR side. So this is a very pertinent subject that we're sitting in on today. We're very proud of the way Mahopac Bank stepped up in the beginning of the pandemic and have continued to work with our clients for the past 18 months. I attribute our success to the fact that we're a smaller community-focused bank at a time when local management's quick decision-making is crucial. We are open for business. We're having a very successful 2021 and are looking forward to continued success next year. We've grown to become a nearly $8 billion organization with the technology of a larger bank and the personal service of a community bank. So that combination seems to be a real sweet spot for our clients. Relationships with our customers mean a great deal to us, and we take those relationships very seriously by often going above and beyond to meet their expectations. We provide depository, cash management, and fraud protection services, along with a full array of personal and commercial lending products. We also do a great deal of volunteer work and community support throughout Westchester. Our employees love helping out in our communities, and we look forward to continuing that tradition. So with all that being said, again, we just want to thank you for the opportunity to continue to sponsor the breakfast, and we'll be available to answer any questions you have. You can go through the business council to get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help in any way we can. So I'll turn it back to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, the Tompkins Mahopac Bank has been a wonderful supporter of this series for a number of years, and we've definitely taken it to the next level now with our virtual reach. So we appreciate the support of the series and the business council. Now I'm going to turn the program over to Donovan Beckford. Donovan Beckford is our moderator for today, and he's going to take us through this panel discussion. Donovan is a business consultant with Green Archers Business Solutions, LLC. He is formerly the CEO and executive director of Westcott. He was also the executive director of the Westchester Putnam Workforce Development Board for close to 20 years. Donovan is known for his outstanding leadership in workforce development, economic development, and other related disciplines. Today, Donovan is using his combined years of experience and expertise to help local businesses address some of the major challenges. Donovan, thank you for taking us through this program today, and I will turn it over to you to introduce our wonderful panelists.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. This is a very exciting morning for those of us who are in business, because we're seeing new opportunities. I like the way Matt put it, that we are returning to normal. I'm very privileged this morning to be the moderator for this session. And I think if we are paying attention to the news, you've probably heard that there's some 3.5 million job openings that have gone unfilled. I also noticed that in the New York State Department of Labor's quarterly report, the last quarterly report, that in the Hudson Valley, there's some 41,000 job openings that have not been filled during that quarter. So this morning, thanks to the Business Council, we've empaneled a group of very knowledgeable, experienced individuals from various workforce subgroups to address the questions of the labor shortage and shortages in the workforce. So without further ado, let me take the opportunity to introduce our panelists. There are 7 of them. And I want to get through the introductions real quickly so we can start asking them some questions. First, I want to introduce Peter Herrera. He's the president of the New York Hospitality Group. You know, the New York Hospitality Group rests on 4 legs. One is a 90-year young American bistro bar and event space at Sam's at Getaway. They also they have a special division that specializes in BBQ to create full service special events from 50 to 5,000 people. They operate 4 everyday healthy cafes in the Montefiore hospitals. And Peter also has a consulting and management division, helping clients to identify and holistically turn their hospitality business challenges into opportunities.
Thank you.
Tony Johnson is a partner with Mayor and Markey and Justice LLP. And this is a full-service CPA firm focused primarily on 3 things: outsourcing accounting, outsourcing CFO, and outsourcing human resources. It has a unique specialty working with professional service firms, including importers and distributors and not-for-profit organizations. Tony is a former chair of the Business Council, and he is currently a member of the Executive Board. Tony also sits on the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency's board, and he serves on many not-for-profit organizations' boards.
Good morning.
Thank you, Tony. And Alison Madison, the president and CEO of Madison Approach Staffing. Alison has been a long-serving member of the New York State and the Westchester Putnam Workforce Development Boards. With over 20 years of experience, she and her team have provided workforce solutions to organizations that have identified training and hire top talent. Thank you, Alison. John Perno is the Assistant Vice President of Employment with the Hospital for Special Surgery in Westchester. He serves as a leader, mentor, contributor for diverse sets of business initiatives, including recruitment, onboarding, mentoring, immigration, and performance management. He also owns and operates M-Trip Career Services that provides one-on-one career counseling and resume services to those who are seeking their first or their last job. Thank you, Joanne, for joining us. And then Ms. Tracy Wright, who I know from a long time ago. She's the Assistant Vice President of Youth and Employment with West Hab, which is a local not-for-profit organization. Her passion for helping.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think some folks are having a little trouble hearing you because you're moving a little bit from the mic. So if you could just stay a little closer so everyone can hear the intros.
Okay, I will do that. I'm up to Ms. Tracy Wright.
Wonderful, thank you.
For helping others reach their full potential began when she was a case manager in the foster care system. She joined West Hab briefly in 1997 as a case manager. She left and worked in with other companies and spread it across several states, providing employment services to youths and adults. She returned to West Hab in 2019 to lead employment services, youth service, and community centers across Westchester and New York City. Thanks for joining us, Tracy. And Ms. Dana Jordan Woods is the Director of Human Resources for the Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts. Dana is a longtime HR director at the casino. In January of 2019, when MGM acquired Empire City, she became a very important leader of that brand. And this increased, the company increased the payroll wages for much of the workforce, eliminating the need for multiple jobs, and ensuring, team members remain focused on customer first service standards and earn family sustaining wage. MGM Yonkers Empire City currently is working towards securing a full-scale gaming license, which would provide an opportunity to hire more than 2,000 additional employees. And our 7th panelist is Mr. Don Zim, who is the Senior Vice President for Stephen Douglas, which is an executive search firm. This is a national boutique executive search and project solution firm based in Florida with offices in 18 cities across the country. They employ more than 130 professionals. Dan is responsible for executive and leadership search in the Northeast and has an office in Tarrytown. Dan is a serial entrepreneur. He's won some, he's lost some, but he's returned to the executive search business in the last 16 years. And we are so glad that you were able to join us, Dan.
Thank you, Donovan.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've passed this first question over to Peter. And it's a two-part question, Peter. It says, I want to ask, how has the lack of trained workers changed your approach to business? And how are you adapting to the lack of quality management staff? If you can put them together.
Sure. Hospitality, as everyone knows, is at first we were public enemy number one. Everybody forgot how much they enjoyed going out to restaurants and catering parties and celebrating their lives. But we had to literally completely shut down. And what happens in most industries when you shut down, people still need income. So a lot of people have left our industry. They're not coming back because they don't trust it. But for us, we switched from growth and profitability to survival. We changed our product lines, our services, our hours. We didn't open up for lunch. Sam's of getting away. To not be open up for lunch is incredible. But so we change our products, our hours, our services. We reached out. So it really kind of funneled down and we got to the essence of what a hospitality company was. We actually opened up another cafe with Montefiore, and it was incredibly difficult to find staff and management to go there. Who wants to start a new job at a hospital in the middle of a pandemic? To say it was challenging is the understatement of the century for us. So we've changed a lot of what we've offered. But with that said, we've lost a lot of staff and we repositioned a lot of our staff. We've actually been able to, we're rebuilding our management team. We've been able to reach out and compete with Manhattan for chefs. We have a new executive chef that we're very, very happy with, a new restaurant manager, a new event salesperson, all out of Manhattan. It's amazing because they're saying they're not going back to Manhattan as long as we can put a package together for them, that they see growth, that they see education, training. We've gotten 3 new managers to our team that I could have never touched 5 years ago. So it's a combination of being flexible. We've reached out to high schools. I've never reached out to a high school in my entire life for staff. We've lost a third of our staff in the interview process, a third of our staff, the new staff coming on within the first 30 days. But I will tell you, these young people will do anything. They remind us of our generation back when we were in our teens in high school. It's amazing. There's some really amazing people out there. But as employers, we have to be very sensitive to their fears. I don't want to be near people. Let me see your sanitation. I want fresh air. There's a lot of different things that we have to ask. We have husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, all working together. And there's a camaraderie that I haven't seen in a long time. And we're flexible with their hours. So it's very, very uncharted territory. And we're looking into Facebook, help wanted ads. Our communications with our clients is amazing. I have clients, my grandson needs work. Okay, send them in. And it's an interesting time, Donovan.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. Tony, I want to ask you the next question. It's a 2-part question in the interest of time. And that is, to what extent, Tony, do you attribute the difficulty of talent acquisition in the financial services? And how are you and your clients addressing that shortage?
Well, thank you, Donovan, and good morning. First, I also want to recognize the Business Council for putting on the event, right? Thank you for hosting, and thank all the other panelists. I'm honored to be participating with you. So, when it comes to financial services, there's been a talent shortage for a long time. What's happened is that the pandemic has exacerbated that challenge, right? Job applicants are out there. When you send out a job posting, there are applicants, but real talent is already employed someplace else. So what's happened is recruiting has become more actively searching for talent that's elsewhere employed, and explaining and talking about the better opportunity that you might be able to provide, whether that's geographically, whether that's compensation and benefits, whether that's career opportunity. The pandemic, has reduced talent movement, in my opinion. Individuals are more reevaluating where they want to work, what type of work-life balance they desire, whether they want to work remotely or in person, geographically, where do I want to commute to? What is that commute like? Am I still comfortable commuting to New York City? Hopefully that allows us in Westchester to see some talent migration from the city up to Westchester. That's what we're hoping for. We were optimistic that some of that might happen sort of post-summer in September, but the Delta variant sort of has delayed and paused some of that migration. So, I think that the process overall has been a lack of talent and having to look for employed talent elsewhere. And then a pandemic that has made folks sort of pause any significant decision in their life and reevaluate what their needs and desires are, which we're hoping, right, as we continue to fight the pandemic and get this under control, that you will see some talent movement, and again, specifically out of the city into Westchester. For us, in terms of how we're dealing with it and how our clients are dealing with it, recruiting has become a 365-day-a-year activity. We are recruiting on a regular basis. We are always looking for talent. If there's talent available in the marketplace, we are willing to add that talent to our team. We feel confident we'll grow into the talent that's available. And so it's not as if you first, wait for a need to occur and then start recruiting. Recruiting is something that we're doing on a regular basis. We have put a lot of effort and have advised our clients to put a lot of effort into expediting the interview and offer process. We used to have a process where we would bring up a candidate in for a phone screen, an assessment, an initial interview with maybe HR, and then finally meeting somebody from the team, and then finally maybe meeting, the person making the hiring decision, which would be myself or one of my partners. And at this point now, we go right from, resume receipt, phone screen, make sure there's a general match, come in for an interview with the managing partner. The offer can be made before you leave the office, at least orally. So we're expediting that, and we've been very successful with that. That has helped our process significantly. And we're now talking a lot more about the MMJ experience, which is how we've invested in technology, how we invest in our teammates, how we care about the work-life balance of our staff, and how we're going to help them develop a career. And for us, that's made some difference. Still remains a challenge, Donovan, but it's made some difference and has helped improve the situation for us. And we see that with some of our clients as well.
Tony, I have to do a quick follow-up with you on that. This expedited intro and offer phase that you've introduced, do you take into consideration reference checks and background checks and things like that?
So certainly before we actually add somebody to the active roster, we are in fact requesting a background check and doing reference checks. We may talk about that somewhat generally in the interview process. And if there becomes an issue there, then that could affect the actual start date or whether or not somebody actually starts with the job. So, but the difference is, from when you're leaving the interview, you have a general sense of, yes, I'm going to receive this offer. I know generally what it's like. And we have a sort of an oral agreement that we think this would work. And then that's then followed up by our HR department with more of a formal process, offer letter, reference check, background check before the actual start date.
Great. Thanks for that clarification, Tony. Allison, I'm going to come to you next. Tony just described what, his experience has been, in the financial services and HR sectors and not-for-profits. And you are a little bit much more diverse in the job seekers that you're working with. So what do you think, are there some reasons that outside of what Tony mentioned that you think are contributing to this job shortages? And what are some of the strategies that may be used to attract talent for your customers?
Thank you, Donovan. And Thank you again for inviting me on the panel, and thank you for hosting. As far as the reasons for this issue, I mean, it really is very multifaceted. I mean, I know a lot of people want to say, blame the extended UI benefits and such, but in reality, one, there were considerable labor shortages in certain sectors even prior to the pandemic, in healthcare or manufacturing, as Tony mentioned, in finance. And preceding the pandemic, we were actually at a 40-year high in labor participation rates. So we had huge numbers of people that otherwise wouldn't have been in the workforce, like, people retirees who stayed in well past typical retirement age. You had a lot of like working parents who were, doing part-time jobs, filling a lot of those gaps. And, what ended up happening is a lot of people have either exited the market permanently, like, whether it's retirees, working parents who are saying, I can't do this with uncertainty about school. And then there's also the job shifting piece. A lot of, as Peter mentioned, there are a lot of people that say we're in hospitality or even in healthcare who said, I'm not comfortable doing this, and they're looking for other opportunities. And, the remote work has opened up job opportunities to a lot of those people that otherwise wouldn't be. So, all in all, when you add up all these different exits and work shifts and such, you really have lost probably about 10-15% of the labor force that was, predating the pandemic. But as far as, where do we go from here, right? Because that's what's important. And, the first and foremost, I tell people, you need to be a good employer. I mean, the reality is that the best places to work are going to get the talent. And it's, almost a natural selection sort of an environment. So, people who are able to, I'm going to basically echo very much of what Tony's doing a lot of stuff that's right, which is, it's not always about the money, it's about that culture and growth opportunities. So if you as an employer are able to demonstrate that you have career pathways, that you have a plan for your new hires, providing mentorships, for example, and articulating that in your employer brand, if you will, to be able to explain to prospective candidates that you're a really great place to work and you're interested in their success, not just about what they can do for you. Another thing is, say, recalibrating total compensation plans. Again, not necessarily all about money, but a 20-something person is interested in doing something and has different needs than a 60-something person. So, kind of, if you have the capability of customizing benefit packages and offerings, really that's a huge way of attracting talent. But ultimately it comes down to being a really good employer.
I want to just do a quick follow-up to you on that. What does a good job posting look like? If you're out there, trying to get the people that you're serving, what are some of the basic requirements for that job postings to get your initial draw? So oftentimes when you look at job postings, they're very, if you will, employer focused, right? It's like, hey, this is what we expect of you, right? This is what, and it's more of a weeding out process. And in reality, those job postings should be a casting of a net instead of a weeding out. And so when you're doing a job posting, you really should contemplate it the same way that you would any marketing piece. If you're trying to capture a sale, it needs to be, your customer focused. And in reality, you're really seeking your employees should be looked at like a customer. And that job posting really should be almost like a marketing piece. Again, going back to the explanation of why you're a good fit. And if you, an employer-employee really, it should be like a symbiotic relationship. And if you're telling your story about your organization, you'll attract people that have that alignment, with your organization, your culture, your fit, and all of those sorts of things. And that's important to talk about in your job postings. And
need not be, your internal job post, your internal job description is very different. The one that people sign when they get hired with all of their, responsibilities is different than the job posting. And that's what it needs to be focused on is, telling your story and what you can provide. And that is that symbiotic relationship.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. I want to jump to Tracy to continue that conversation around the job seeking candidates. Tracy, what kind of job seekers are you working with now? And what challenges are they facing in looking for employment? And are the employers hiring them when you make the referrals?
Thanks, Donovan. So I think very similarly to what has been said from Allison and even from Peter, we are now seeing individuals who either don't have the exact skill set that the employer is looking for, or maybe they've done a complete career change. And so what we've been seeing is that sometimes some of the employers are looking for something very specific and not always maybe taking into consideration those transferable skills that individual can bring to the table, or being able to do some specific training that would prepare the person for that employment opportunity, even though they're bringing some of the soft skills that are needed. So we're seeing people that might not have, the lengthy work experience that some of our employers are looking for, nonetheless very eager to enter the market and be able to, really start their career path. We've also encountered many job seekers who, may have taken some wrong turns down the road and sometimes are looking for some employers to provide some flexibility in having individuals want to start over and start a new path. So I think that's been a big challenge that we've been experiencing. We also work with employers and we try to match those job seekers to those employment opportunities. Sometimes when you have that person or that agency in between that can speak on behalf of the employee to the employer and help both of them to kind of understand the match, it helps for a very successful union.
Great. Thank you so much, Tracy. I have a follow-up for you on, what were some of the unique things that you can do or agencies like yours are doing to help move some of those more difficult, individuals into those employment opportunities. I know things like on-the-job training and customized. Are we using those tools currently, and how is that working?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that has been really helpful is that we do have these training programs that we provide to, our young adults and our adult population. And it's worked out really well. To give you an example, we have a construction training program where we provide the actual soft skills and the hard skills to prepare individuals to move into the construction industry, which we know is a growing industry. We've seen a tremendous amount of success in that area. We also work with young adults and we provide them with work experience opportunities so that they can gain the skill set to prepare them for those employment opportunities when they come available later on.
Great. Thank you so much, Tracy. Then I want to jump to you. MGM is a bit of what you term a unicorn, as a large percentage of your team members returned when you reopened your doors. What do you attribute this retention to?
The environment. We have a number of our employees that wanted to return, and that was a beautiful thing. We're actually celebrating our 15th anniversary on October 11th, and a number of our employees are since day one. They were here when we opened the property initially, and they wanted to come back. They see a career path. We have not only the ability within the organization and this property to grow, but we also have properties across the United States and internationally. And there is a career path where they have that ability to apply for those jobs, to transition to other properties and other responsibilities. competitive wages. And then the thing that I want to talk about too is the family environment, figuratively and literally. We have a lot of families that work for us, so that's a good thing. That's just a word of mouth. Our employees telling their family members what a great environment it is to work in, proximity to home, things along that line. So I think just comprehensively offering not only the benefits, wages, et cetera, but a good environment to work in. We are hospitality, we are here to entertain the human race. So that's something that we also need to cascade to our employees. We should entertain and engage our employees to attract and to retain.
Great, thank you so much. When we looked at that report I referred to earlier, more than 50%, just about 50% of the job openings are in the hospitality sector. And I know you represent a large number of those workers that are coming back to work. And we do appreciate the fact that you have that unique environment that encourages people to come back. So we really do appreciate the work you're doing there. Don, you're unique in that you are actually providing executive search for leadership positions. How is the opportunities for leadership in organizations? Are you finding that there are shortages there too?
Oh, Donovan, first of all, thank you. Thank you for being here and for including me on the panel. Look, the shortages for leadership existed before the pandemic struck. I mean, we have been going through a squeeze. There's a grab for talent. What happens when you have a crisis, though? Think about what we had the last 8-10 years prior to the pandemic. There, to a certain extent, everybody was succeeding, and therefore the level of management and leadership may not have required excellence in order to do well. All of a sudden, we see businesses facing crises, facing situations they've never faced before. And so therefore, the demands on leadership became greater in the pandemic. We had to figure out how to move rapidly, how to be flexible, how to make changes. I mean, think of the things that Peter talked about and the changes he had to make to his business. It requires a different level of leadership. So not only was there a shortage of leadership that before the pandemic started, all of a sudden it became much more important for you to find great leaders. And look, without great leadership, there aren't companies. And the leaders are the people who are the magnets that draw the talent below to those companies. So all are necessary in order to succeed in this environment.
So a follow-up for you, Don, is, of course, you need qualified candidates for these. So how do you find those passive candidates? Candidates who are not looking for a job because they're probably already working or they're withdrawn from the workforce, or, how do you find those, those candidates in this kind of market? And how do you get them?
Sure. Look, this is the problem with posting. Posting is an effective strategy, but it's one component of a recruiting strategy. Why is that? Because at any given point in time, 80% of the people are not looking for a job, and therefore they're not responding to any kind of a posting. They are the people that we call passive candidates. So the challenge is, how do you get the passive candidates? Passive candidates are people who are busy succeeding in their own jobs right now, whose heads are down, they're doing their jobs, they're doing their work. You have to go and find them. First of all, that changes the formula. I mean, 50% of this is identifying them, but then there's 50% which comes into compelling them to want to entertain a conversation that they weren't even looking to get into. But the way you find passive candidates are, I think it's pretty logical out there. Number one, your best source of passive candidates is your network, the people that you know. Talk to people that you know. Talk to others that you know in the space. Ask them who they know that's great, who might be interested in talking to you about an opportunity. Get introduced. Number two, you have to develop a search plan. You have to think about, by the function and by the industry, what other kinds of people might be attractive to us. And then you've got to go out and identify them. And the good news is 15 or 20 years ago, search firms had, a monopoly on the database. They owned, big search firms had huge databases and they could find anybody. Well, today, guess what? Everybody has access to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is an incredible database that we all have access to. The issue is you got to figure out how to use it. But you can go into LinkedIn and you can try to figure out who are the people within a 25-mile geography of where I am, or whatever the commuting distance is that I want to reach out to. And then you have to figure out a way to reach out to them, and get their interest. And that's a challenge. As somebody who runs a professional search operation, that's our biggest challenge. And we reach out to 100 passive candidates to try to get 50 people to talk to us, to try to get 25 who might be somewhat qualified, to try to get 12 who we can interview, to try to get 6 that we can present to a client. So, that's a law of large numbers. You got, we start out with 100 in order to get to 6. You can't just try to identify 5 people and figure that you're going to make what I would call an optimal hire. And so, the last way you find them is if you need to, you can utilize a search firm. But even though that's what I do for a living, my belief is it's not even 80-20, it's not even a 90-10, it's a 95-5. Companies need to become good at recruiting the people that they need to recruit on an ongoing basis. You use search firms for specialty hires, for significant leadership hires, for really difficult situations. Otherwise, you got to become good at doing that, and hunting the passive candidate is a big part of it internally.
So Don, this is a really quick follow-up to that. Are there things that your clients can do to help you attract those candidates? Are there things that, they package outside of what you do as a search firm? What are the businesses sharing with these clients to really get them to really take a serious look?
Well, look, you have to figure out what's your compelling message. And we start out with our clients, and it's one of the first questions we ask. What's compelling about this opportunity that's going to get somebody who is succeeding somewhere else to even look up and take notice and think about joining you, let alone accepting the job? And so there's a lot of work that needs to go into a consistent answer to that question. Now, what are the answers to it? Well, some of it could be economic. Some of it could be the function. Some of it can be flexibility in locations. Some of it could be benefits. A lot of it is culture. A lot of it is leadership. A lot of it is the career opportunity. But you got to figure out a way to distill that message to get somebody excited enough to say, you know what, I want to learn more about it. Because if they're not willing to put a toe in the water, that's where it all starts. And hopefully, once they become interested, then you can figure out, is this a candidate that really is a fit? And you can figure out how to keep pulling them in. And that's what you got to do.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Don. Joanne, are you back, Joanne? I wanted to, if you are, just raise your hand. Let me see.
Don, it looks like Joanne's still having,
Okay, so let me go. Okay, Peter, I'm going to come back to you with a quick follow-up question. Are there some new and different kind of strategies that you're employing in your businesses that you think may be useful with other hospitality business outside of anything that you've discussed in your previous responses? Peter, you still there? Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're just going in and out on me. What was the question again?
Right. Oh, I was just wondering whether or not there were some new strategies that you were employing, in addressing this challenge that you could share with businesses in the hospitality space that they may also pursue.
It was funny. I was just answering to Tom's question, and I can do it now. Smaller companies, we find it very difficult. We don't have the personnel to send somebody to a job fair. We don't have, when you walk in, our controller is our HR person. It's a very different situation, but what gives us our disadvantage to the larger organizations, when you walk in, hey, Donovan, how you doing? I'm Peter. What department are you looking for? And when people walk away, or I'm bilingual, and buenos dias, caballero, ¿cómo estamos hoy? People look at you and go, that's the general manager, that's the founder of the company. As I'm walking by or sitting down, hey guys, I'm going upstairs to get a cup of coffee, cappuccino. And I'm not in the interview process. Anybody want a cappuccino or something to drink? So we have the culture that everybody's talking about, especially when Tony's saying, you meet us right in the office, we're walking around. But what I like is, and I never thought of what Allison had a point, how many people have left the market. It makes me feel so much better. I just thought it was me, that we're looking at different markets. We just hired an assistant operations manager. I could have never thought of having that position in the organization. We just didn't have the resources. We brought him in. He came from another industry. He goes, I want part-time work. I'm okay. He has a good rate of pay. He goes, Peter, we have breakfast together, lunch together. Once a month, we celebrate. We go upstairs. It is nice to have a bar in the building. We have happy hour. So, and we got him from another part-time employee. I've heard it a couple different times. Your part-time employees already like us. What we do well, they like. They are our raving fans. And we don't think of them as that, but we've given out bottles of wine. Hey, Donovan, thank you so much for that introduction. By the way, Donovan, all I need is the introduction. It's my job to bring them in to see if it's a good match. And I still do like that attitude of bringing people in. It's about, as Tony said, it's about a good match. But you'd be surprised how many avenues, and I will tell you, it gives me a headache just thinking about it. Facebook, LinkedIn, I can't even get to LinkedIn at times because we don't have this staff to sit there and put it all together. But word of mouth, our email, our newsletter has been phenomenal. People love that. Thank you so much for your patience while we're going on the communications. People loved it. We did it as tongue in cheek, but thank you for being nice to our employees because they are stressed. Our employees that are showing up, because so many people don't want to work today, but these people do want to work. So could you please be a little more patient because we are short-staffed and it's hard to get products and services. I will tell you the staff loved it because we posted it up on the kitchen board and throughout the building. It's hand-to-hand combat right now to get staff to change their schedule. Some of it is pay rate, and we're gonna have to bite the bullet on this one. My industry has been, we have not been able to keep up with competitive pay rates, immigration. There's so many things that are coming at us right now, but I don't need to win the big battle. I need to win the day-to-day battles, and that keeps us going. So there's a lot of non-traditional ways of communicating that we're open for business and looking for people to grow, and we're supporting our staff.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Tony, in a related way, I want to ask you what impact compensation was having on recruitment in your industry, and whether or not you think that this whole recruitment hiring process is going to get easier as we get past to the end of and past COVID.
Well, Donovan, thank you. And look, I certainly hope it gets easier. I think as employers here in Westchester, we all would like to see that. And, I echo Peter's thoughts about, leveraging your network as best you can. We similarly, whenever there's a job posting, we incent our employees to introduce us to their friends and peers. And so that is, as some of the other panelists have spoken to, some of the best ways of just getting, the sort of the warm introduction to a potential candidate. Compensation levels, I think, are on the rise. Peter just alluded to this as well. There are many reasons for increased compensation depending upon what industry you're in and what level of worker that you're hiring. Some of the government incentive programs have created a sort of more of a desire for higher compensation levels to come back and engage in the workplace. I think we've seen some of that in various industries. Again, Peter has alluded to some of that. In an industry like mine or the clients that we serve, which are generally, professional services, not-for-profits, we're seeing higher compensation. We are seeing that there are more aggressive benefit offerings. That does matter. We've even started to see signing bonuses return in our industry to incent senior talent to move. And as Don spoke about, right, a lot of the senior talent is employed elsewhere. They're passive. Their heads are down. How do you get them to engage in the conversation? How does this become an opportunity that perhaps they want to consider? Signing bonuses do help that. And I think bonuses for performance are very important, not just on an annual basis, but regularly throughout the year. so that you have that dialogue. But all of that does in fact impact compensation levels. And yes, I think they are increasing. That's what we see. And, you know, we offer all of the soft perks as well. You know, the employee-friendly programs, the thank yous, the firm gatherings, the remote work options, the appointment of career counselors internally and peer mentors to help somebody succeed, and on-the-job training. But compensation has to increase along with that, and that is what we are seeing.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. Allison, in your work, does the career page make a difference for an employer?
Absolutely. I mean, a career page, it is the marketing of your employer brand, right? And as you know, we kind of mentioned before, you know, when really those two things, the HR and marketing, often are like in completely different silos in the organization, and that really needs to be broken down because, you know, as Tony was saying, you know, they're able to provide those, you know, all these different benefits and such. Well, if they keep it under lock and key and nobody knows about it, right? Or you know, or Peter, who has, you know, fantastic, you know, camaraderie and all those sorts of things, and they have their sort of, you know, individual culture. If that's not put out there, there's no reason for an employee who kind of looks at your career page and just sees job postings like, well, what is it like to work there? So to be able to provide that career page as your kind of way of enticing employees to come, you know, because guarantee you, if they see a job posting or if they see, you know, your newsletter that you're looking or whatever it is, they're going to go look at your website. And if there's not a place for promoting your work, then on your site, then, you know, what does that say about your company? Right. You know, because so I really think that things and keeping the things that you put on a career page, you know, aside from that, those benefits and cultures, but also same way you use customer testimonials, you should use employee testimonials, right? If you can get a video of your employee going, I love working here. This is why I joined this team. This is where I've grown. I started out, say, you know, in Peter's, I started as a line cook and now I'm a manager. You know, I mean, whatever it might be able to explain to a prospective candidate the same way you explain to a sale, right? Hey, this is why you want to be here. This is why you should, you know, be part of our team. And it's creating that inclusion, you know, helping people to imagine themselves there. And that will, and when you tell your story, you will attract the people that really gravitate to you and fit your culture. And that's also important because if you could be the greatest accountant or coder or a chef, right? Whatever industry you might be, it doesn't necessarily mean that you fit in that organization, right? And so you want to attract to people, you know, the people that are a good fit for your organization as well. And telling your story helps to do that.
Great, thank you so much. So, you know, Tracy, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the jobs that you're filling. You know, the state indicated that hospitality jobs there are high openings in hospitality, in healthcare, and they talk a lot about some of the professions. Now, the people that you are placing and the employers are reaching out to you, what industries are they in and what occupations are they looking to fill? What jobs?
So I think for our end, we are primarily seeing a lot of entry to mid-level positions, right? And those are the job seekers that we tend to serve for the most part. We are seeing, again, I'd mentioned a lot of movement in the construction industry. We have started to see more movement in the hospitality industry, and we do have individuals that are, you know, equipped and able to work in those areas. And like Peter mentioned earlier, you know, tapping into populations that you may not have thought about before, whether it's your, you know, your high school students or, you know, whatever that is, I think is really important, because I do feel like a lot of the people that we serve are kind of this untapped labor market that's out there. And so we want to be able to bring those job opportunities to them. So again, we're seeing the healthcare. We've had some great partnerships with some of our healthcare providers and bringing some individuals on as well. So those are the areas we're seeing most of the movement.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Ms. Woods, you've heard from your colleagues on this panel about the challenges that they're having, and they've talked about some of the solutions that they're using. What are some unique methods that you would recommend for the hospitality sector in terms of attracting new talent?
I think it comes to one, flexibility, and I echo a lot of what my colleagues have said in the call. There's a lot of different methodologies that we can take, but just being flexible, I think, is important. Reassessing the jobs, reassessing the experience that's required. To me, there's experience and then there's training. There's certain aspects of our company that you can't come with experience, right? Because the job itself is so niche. We then will just bring you in and train. So I think those are the things where you reassess the job itself. Is it something that can be done remotely? Is it something that we can provide flexible hours? My colleagues have talked about marketing strategies, looking at different sectors and areas where we can tap into individuals. The other thing that I think that's important in the reduction of the time to hire, because our hiring span is extremely long. We have to go through several levels, not only the interview process, but then also we all have to be licensed to work at our property. And that's another layer of time to fill. But the thing that I think that's helped us a lot is communicating and authenticity. Explaining to someone and providing a realistic job preview. What does it mean to work in this environment? And to that kind of dialogue ensures that there is a fit on both sides. We are a hospitality industry. There are going to be times that we're going to be faced with challenges from our guests, our patrons. And we have to be able to convey that information to a prospective candidate so that they understand the type of role that they're getting into. We talk about, retention reviews. Sometimes people come and they leave. Why? Why is that happening? What do we need to do to reassess what we've conveyed and what we're not delivering on? And how do we then go back and correct that? So I think, it's going to be a combination. We can't stay stagnant. We have to keep reassessing things along the way to see how we can attract and retain talent in this area. And, talking to employees is another thing as well. Again, just to make sure that we're keeping our finger on the pulse of what's going on in our organization.
Great, thank you so much. Donna, I have a question for you, Donna, about how would you recommend that any one of the participants in today's webinar, what are the best strategies for recruiting a firm such as yours, a search firm? If I have a leadership position I'm trying to recruit from, how do I select the best firm to help me?
Look, I think search, just like any other professional service, is a labor of trust. You have to believe in the person that you're dealing with. Unlike many other professions, however, search has no barrier to entry. To be a CPA, to be an accountant, you have to pass a CPA exam. To be a lawyer, a bar exam, a doctor, the medical boards, a nurse, an architect, an engineer. Countless professions have credentialing requirements. For search, there aren't any credentials and there are no barriers to entry. So it's a slippery slope. And I think caveat emptor, the buyer needs to beware. You need to make sure that the firm you're dealing with has a reputation for quality, and ultimately it's the person who's going to be doing the search. So I think, whether you decide on contingency or retain, is another question in there. But above all else, you really want to be dealing with a professional, somebody who understands business, somebody who can add value. Search fees are very, very high. If you're paying a fee that's this high and you're getting that much value, that's not a good fit. So I think you got to ask the question: how do you add value? How do you create an environment that allows us to get more from the investment we're making? And in my world, I do that primarily by using my operational experience from my past as an entrepreneur to ask questions about establishment of business needs, rather than asking a client, who do you need me to find for you? I asked the question, where does your business need to be in 18 months and what's preventing you from getting there? And from that answer, we develop the scorecard of what we need to be finding to fill the position, or maybe positions, and sometimes it turns into a different position than what was expected.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your responses. Amanda, we have some questions in the chat. I would love to take some of the questions. One question here is, what platforms are being used for recruiting for jobs in your company? Anybody wants to take that? Peter, Tony, Danita?
Sure. I'll start very quickly. We are on Indeed. That's where some of our postings go. We're using LinkedIn, as some of the other panelists mentioned. Those really are our two primary, along with our internal source of other networks and friends.
Great, thank you so much, Tony. And real quickly, how are we combating what is called ageism in the recruitment process? Go ahead, Don.
Donovan, and people ask that all the time. My sense is that you have to, when you're working to get a job, you have to understand what your product is and who you are. And you have to market yourself appropriately. When you have the kind of gray hair and wrinkles that I have, you have to market yourself as the voice of wisdom and maturity, and somebody who has the ability to synthesize a lot of experience into answers. The ageism question then is really, I don't think companies ever discriminate about age. I think they discriminate against a lack of energy. So I think there's energy discrimination, but I think people who are 60 who can run circles around people in their 40s are still going to get the attention, are still going to get the consideration. And so I think it's about passion and energy and knowing how to market yourself.
So this is another general question. Companies are paying so much. I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead. I see your hand up. You have to unmute yourself.
You're on mute.
God, there we go. I can't, Don, you just hit, we just hired two people over 60. An event planner had her own company, but she didn't have the resources to stay in business. I can't divulge her age, but I got to tell you, we're so happy to have her. The operations manager came from a large company. He goes, I don't want this anymore. They came aboard. So Don Zim, I can't tell you, you just rang the bell for us. Our differential, how we brought in this talent, is they had the energy and they want to be with the company that expects more from them because they want to be part of the team. You couldn't have, you're in my head and you're number one in how we're bringing people aboard. And my competition, this woman used to hire us as an event planner to do her barbecues and her bar mitzvahs. She goes, I like the way you do business. Do you have an opening for sales? I just want to do sales. Don, when I heard an event specialist doesn't want to plan parties, but she just wants to do sales and take care of her clients, I almost cried. So I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you really hit that energy. There is no sexism to most employers because we can't find good enough people.
Great, thank you so much. Amanda, I'm not sure if we have a question.
If I could just follow up on what Peter was saying, but where ultimately that you got that hire through your relationships. And
yes,
and that is like, the key, and I know it's super hard for, small businesses, because I know, Tony, you had mentioned you're doing the 365, recruiting thing. So many small businesses don't have the bandwidth to do recruiting, 365, but you can build your relationships. Small businesses are in the relationship business, no matter what business you're in. And that is the core of finding good talent and hiring talent first, and then figuring out where they work in your organization second, because you can't train for enthusiasm, you can't train for commitment, you can't train for those things, but you can train someone on almost on any skill, but it's that those core values that you have to hire for.
All right, and this is my final question to the panelists real quickly. We're spending so much time and money on recruiting. Is there a place for coaching to help the businesses to train and retain those new employees? Who wants to take that one on?
Well, I mean, I think that that is essential for all businesses. And again, I think it goes to, being a good employer, and that's how you're going to get that talent. And if you are investing in your employees, who are ultimately what make your business work, you don't have a business without employees. You can't do it all by yourself. So, so if you are providing those coaching opportunities, as Danette said, we do, those sorts of strategies, doing career pathways, training, on the job training, all those sorts of things. Your employees feel valued and they're part of that team. They're not just a cog in a wheel. And that's, essential for any organization.
And Donovan, I would add,
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Donovan, I would add to that very briefly that, we have the same experience when somebody comes into our organization. Before they get here, they have a 2-week onboarding program and platform. They get appointed to a career counselor who's somebody who they may work with, along with a peer mentor who's somebody who's been here for many, many years, and in many instances, a couple of decades, to tell them how MMJ works, right? To help somebody acclimate in. And that's been essential in helping us with the hiring process. I know we're out of time, so thank you.
Great. Listen, thanks to each of you. You've been wonderful. Your responses have been very helpful. And I wish you the very best. I want to turn back over to Amanda to wrap us up. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Donovan. And yes, thank you all for participating. We could probably talk about this for hours. So
Yeah.
You all have such insight into this topic. I'm sure we will have further discussions on this. If anyone missed any part of the program or would like to go back and watch any of it, this will be posted on the Business Council's Facebook page as well as the Resource Center. So thank you all again, and we look forward to the next session. Have a great day, everybody.